Grand Rising. Grand Rising, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well.
Grand Rising. Peace, everyone.
Put some ones in the chat if we're coming in okay. Or if we're coming in too loud, let us know. Or if the music is too loud, let us know. Alright, cool beans. So, Grand Rising, Copper Color Queen, Grand Rising, Alpha Jones, PG County Woodbridge. Macadon 1, Grand Rising, Iron Flying Squirrel, Grand Rising, Pamela Hall.
Hope everybody had an enjoyable night. Glad to caught this C.A.B this rising.
It's been a very eventful week already.
Yes, indeed.
Already. So is everybody ready for this ride on this Patriot Act so we can learn how it affects us, our people, and social media?
And then we can drop some solutions that we can do to get around it and make it better for us.
Grand Rising, Original Tiller.
Peace.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the transition so people that come in will know what we're talking about. So give me it's going to take about a couple of seconds for the transition, and then we'll go ahead and proceed with the show. So give me one moment. All right. So Bones, how was your day yesterday?
Interesting and busy. A2 got the chance to meet Miss Leanne yesterday, the owner of Carter's Little Sheep daycare. So got that out the way.
Okay.
And I think we got a couple more scheduled. I think one scheduled today. They'll let me know after the show. It's moving. That 2 hours of sleep then got cut down to an hour and a half.
Well, you should know that was going to be happening. That's normally what happens, right?
Yep. But I enjoy it. I enjoy it though.
Okay. Yeah. Some of the individuals I helped this past weekend with their genealogy, a lot of people are excited. Like I said, shout out to Alpha Jones. She's in Prince William County over here where I'm located, and we're going to be helping her with her nonprofit, getting that kicked off the ground, and being able to take advantage of some of these Section 3 and USDA grants. So yeah, I'm excited about that. So it's about that time, man. It's about that time. Time to put plan into action.
Be telling you, the time is now. All full speed ahead.
So what I wanted to touch on was the Patriot Act. And I think a lot of people don't understand how this affects us, or even if it affects us, or why it affects us. Been a U.S. citizen all my life, good, bad, indifferent, and I don't always agree with what our government does, and this will be one of them times where I don't agree with what our government does. So
are you like, what the man?
Exactly. So we're going to talk about the Patriot Act and give you some basic insight, because you've heard us alluded to it in many shows, and things that you need to be aware of when it comes to the Patriot Act and what's involved in it, and why it's important, not just for ourselves, but for our children and our associates why it's important for us to be very mindful of what we place on social media, because social media, you know, they have to adhere to these Patriot Act and these laws just like we do. So as always, I'm going to Grand Rising David Corey. As always, I'm going to put the link in the chat so people can actually take a look at it for themselves. Of course,
Dropping some sources.
I'm gonna.
I think it's out my system now.
No, it's not, but it's okay. It's okay. I'm gonna put this in chat so they can actually have a copy of it, be able to access it. I understand that some of you are listening and you're not able to view it, but you will be able to go to it later. Because like always, we want to provide the information for you so that, one, you could assist with keeping up with the information, and if there's anything that we quoted that is incorrect or inaccurate, by all means, please do not hesitate to correct us, because we don't know everything, and we're in this together. So we're all learning and we're all growing. Grand Rising Golden Moon. I'm sorry, go ahead, Bones. You want to say something?
No, I'm just saying, yeah. I mean, we are not perfect. We're human beings like everybody else. We do and can and will make mistakes.
So we have this Patriot Act, and for some people, it's this thing or ideology that just looms in the background. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. We're reading it from the Wikipedia page. There's also an actual website that you can actually go to. It's a government entity that deals with that. That'll be Homeland Security. So it's a real thing, people. So I'm going to go ahead and start reading. And it reads, the U.S. Patriot Act, commonly known as the Patriot Act, is an act of the United States Congress that was signed into law by President George W. Bush on October 26, 2001. The title of the act is a contrived three-letter initialism, USA, preceding a seven-letter acronym, Patriot, which in combination stand for Uniting and Strengthening America by providing appropriate tools required to intercept and obstruct terrorism Act of 2001. Now, any of us who have actually worked in a government facility or worked for the government, we love, the government loves acronyms. So every time you see something related to the government, best believe that those letters, every letter stands for something. So the actual U.S. Patriot Act stands for Uniting and Strengthening America by providing appropriate tools required to intercept and obstruct terrorism. That's what that stands for. So that's what USA Patriot stands for.
I'm finna say it again. That's a wide paintbrush there.
The acronym was created by 23-year-old congressional staffer Chris Kyle in response to September 11 attacks and the 2001 anthrax attacks. Congress swiftly passed legislation to strengthen national security. On October 23, 2001, Republican Representative Jim Sensenbrenner introduced House Resolution 3162, incorporating provisions from a previously sponsored House bill, and a Senate bill also introduced earlier in the month. The next day, the act passed the House by a vote of 357 to 66, the Democrats comprising an overwhelming portion of dissent. The three Republicans voting no were Robert Ney, Ohio Butch Otter of Idaho, and Ron Paul of Texas. On October 25th, the act passed the Senate by a 98-1 vote, the only dissident being Russ Feingold of Wisconsin. Those opposing the law have criticized its authorization of indefinite detentions of immigrants. I'm going to repeat that again. Those opposing the law have criticized its authorization of indefinite detentions of immigrants, the permission given to law enforcement to search a home or business without the owner's or occupant's consent or knowledge, the expanded use of national security letters, which allows the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, to search telephone, email, and financial records without a court order, and the expanded access of law enforcement agencies to business records, including library and financial records. Since its passage, several legal challenges have been brought against the act, and federal courts have ruled that a number of provisions are unconstitutional. Many of the act's provisions were to sunset beginning December 31st, 2005, approximately 4 years after its passage. In the months preceding the sunset date, supporters of the act pushed to make its sunsetting provisions permanent, while critics sought to revise variations of various sections to enhance civil liberty protections. In July 2005, the U.S. Senate passed a reauthorization bill with substantial changes to several of the Act's sections, while the House revitalization bill kept most of the Act's original language. The two bills were then reconciled in a conference committee criticized by senators from both the Republican and Democratic parties for ignoring civil liberties and their concerns. The bill, which removed most of the changes from the Senate vision, passed Congress on March 2, 2006, and was signed by President Bush on March 9th and 10th of that year. On May 26, 2011, President Barack Obama signed the Patriot Sunset Extension Act of 2011, a 4-year extension of 3 key provisions in the act. Number 1 will be roving wiretaps, searches of business records, and conducting surveillance on lone wolves, individuals suspected of terrorist-related activities not linked to terrorist groups. Following a lack of congressional support, parts of the Patriot Act expired on June 1, 2015, with passing of U.S. Freedom Act on June 2, 2015, and expired parts were restored and renewed through 2019. However, Section 215 of the law was amended to stop the National Security Agency, NSA, from continuing its mass phone data collection program. Instead, phone companies will retain the data, and the NSA can obtain information about target individuals with permission from a federal court. I'm going to stop right there. Grand Rising Pantera Anka. She says, didn't Obama say he was going to eliminate it when he got into office during his first campaign? Well, that was one of his promises, but you got to realize once you get into office, there are a whole bunch of different things that will occupy your time. Because you got to remember, when he first got in office, his main focus was what? The Healthcare Act. So, some things had to be put on the back burner, if you will. Grand Rising No Sellout, Grand Rising Lady Free. Grand Rising Mr. TJ. Grand Rising Big Hawk. So we're covering the Patriot Act. And as you have heard, when it first got implemented back in 2001, it had some wide sweeping freedoms. And there have been some portions of it that have been peeled back or repealed, but then they added some things. So, bones of what you know and what you've witnessed. From what we just talked about, what things would you have to say about that, the Patriot Act? Or no sellout, that's fine. Anybody, somebody, nobody? Okay.
No, I mean, on the part where they said Obama was going to overturn it, Obama was the main beneficiary from the Patriot Act. Obama was the one that was in office that actually pushed the Patriot Act further through with the digital televisions, giving everybody digital phones. Let's don't forget.
Tell us about those digital televisions and digital phones, Bones.
Oh, you know how it is. If it's digital, the signal go both ways. The signal is coming in and the signal is coming out. You have to ask yourself, why did the government put a digital television in every household in America? Why are they required to make sure there's a digital phone in every household of America? Y'all know about them Obama phones? Obama.
Yep.
They were throwing them away. I remember in the hood, they used to have them post up on every corner. What? Every other weekend giving out them phones.
And this is when you was in Florida, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So
That's the same act that requires every citizen to spy on each other. And you ask them how you gonna do it. With that phone, Xbox and PlayStations, that's when they came up with all them cameras that was in your house that's always on.
Mr. TJ says, "Who that peeking in my window?"
Everybody. No, stop.
So, for the record, so there's no narration being created. Autonomous assembly, no anybody speaking on autonomous assembly in the chat is anti-government. That's not what we're saying, and that's not what we implement. But what we are letting people know is the wide-ranging scope that the Patriot Act offers our government and the enforcers of our government. So, knowing the law is one thing, but knowing how these laws can and may affect you is something different. Because at the end of the day, while we are doing our genealogy and finding out who we are, we can also discuss how these things could potentially affect family members, associates, and things of that nature. And I'm putting it out here like this. This is pure speculation. Pure speculation. But as people continue to self-identify, which is something that's been able to happen since 1970, and people will no longer just be able to self-identify without any proof, what's to keep the government from asking people who still claim African American or black? Because they got rid of Negro. They got rid of Negro and they got rid of Oriental. So those will no longer be self-identifying factors in the census, which is another story that we need to discuss. Because on my birth certificate it says Negro, and my mama and my daddy is listed as Negro. So you take Negro out of the census, you basically eradicated more than 75% of my family. But
yeah, I'm like, what am I now? Yeah, we definitely gonna do a build on that. Now, hold on, I done took it away. What I'm supposed to be? Fused and lost now. Let me stop.
So as we continue to move forward with self-identification, it's getting interesting to say the very least. We're coming up on the 2020 census. As people start to self-identify and things start to escalate and ramp up, and the war, and I'm using air quotes, on terrorism increases, who will be labeled as an immigrant? Because according to the Patriot Act, they can hold an immigrant indefinitely. Now let's just suppose, again, this is pure speculation, so don't everybody panic. But let's just suppose that everybody that declares themselves as African American, right? Government official asks you, well, what house are you from? Most people ain't gonna know what that means, because most people don't understand that a lot of tribes in Africa don't do tribes, they do houses. And you go, well, I don't know. Well, if you don't know what house you're from, you could easily be declared as an immigrant. Again, speculation, so don't panic. But what's to keep that from happening? So they can continue to do some of the things that they do to melanated people, to further the cause of abuse. Just a thought.
No, it ain't no thought. You better actually put in an application and apply it. And it's not knocking on anybody. If you're saying African American and don't have dual citizenship, you are an illegal immigrant.
And black has no legal standing, but that's neither here nor there. So, just something to think about. Again, the African American to immigrant status, that's pure speculation on my part. So, I have nothing to substantiate that. Just something to think about. So we're basically talking about the Patriot Act and how it could affect people we love, people we care about, and how it could be used to create terrorism, or to create terrorists. Because as you know, there are many people in the community who are doing things unintentionally, let's say, put it that way, that could be considered terroristic acts, i.e. using the UCC codes to get rid of debt and authenticate their paperwork. So if they're considered individuals that are doing it terrorists, we need to pay attention to how these individuals will be treated, because Again, we understand that people are doing this to get relief, not because they have intentions or they have ill will towards the government or government officials or anything of that nature. They just want relief, and people do desperate things in times of desperations, and sometimes they're just following what somebody is telling them. So, with that being said, I'm going to continue to read from the definition of the Patriot Act according to Wikipedia, uh, and I will go ahead and put the link in the chat again so people can catch it. LJ Free says, and Africa is a continent, not a country. So if that's the case, that's a person without a home by default. Something to think about.
By title alone, you homeless. Ain't that something?
Very interesting, to say the very least. So let's continue to look at, excuse me, some of the effects the Patriot Act could have on individuals that we know or even care about. So Title I, Enhancing Domestic Security Against Terrorism. Title I authorizes measures to enhance the ability of domestic security services to prevent terrorism. The title established a fund for counterterrorism activities and increased funding for the Terrorist Screening Center, which is administered by the FBI. The military was authorized to provide assistance in some situations that involve weapons of mass destruction when so requested by the Attorney General. The National Electronic Crime Task Force was expanded along with the President's authority and abilities in cases of terrorism. The title also condemned the discrimination against Arab and Muslim Americans that happened soon after the September 11 terrorist attacks. The impetus of many of the provisions came from earlier bills. For instance, the condemnation of discrimination was originally proposed by Senator Tom Harkin. He's a Democrat in Indiana, in an amendment to the Combating Terrorism Act of 2001, though in a different form. It originally included the prayer of Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, the Archbishop of Washington, in a mass on September 12, 2001, for our nation and the victims in the immediate aftermath of the terrorism hijacks and attacks in New York City. Washington, D.C. and Pennsylvania reminds all Americans that we must seek the guilty and not strike out against the innocent, or we become like them who are without moral guidance or proper direction. Further condemnation of racial vilification and violence is also spelled out in Title X, where there was consideration or condemnation of such activities against Sikh Americans who were mistaken for Muslims after the September 11 terrorist attack. So let's look at the surveillance procedures. Ooh, this is deep.
I've been said it.
So we're talking about the surveillance procedures of the Patriot Act that got signed into law in 2001 and has been revised numerous times under different presidents. One president we might want to keep an eye on it when it comes to this is 45. That'll be the president sitting in office right now. So, Title II, Surveillance Procedures. Title II is titled Enhanced Surveillance Procedures and covers all aspects of the surveillance of suspected terrorists, those suspected of engaging in computer fraud or abuse, and agents of a foreign power who are engaged in clandestine activities. It primarily made amendments to FISA and ECPA, and many of most controversial aspects of the U.S. Patriot Act reside in this title. In particular, the title allows government agencies to gather foreign intelligence information from both U.S. and non-U.S. citizens, and changed FISA or FISA to make gaining foreign intelligence information the significant purpose of FISA-based surveillance, where previously it had been the primary purpose. The change in definition was meant to remove a legal wall between criminal investigations and surveillance for purposes of gathering foreign intelligence, which hampered investigations with criminal and foreign surveillance overlap. However, now that this wall even existed, was found by the Federal Surveillance Court of Review to have actually been a long-held misinterpretation by government agencies. Also removed was the statutory requirement that the government prove a surveillance target under FISA is a non-U.S. citizen and agent of foreign power, though it did require that any investigation must not be undertaken on citizens who are carrying out activities protected by the First Amendment. The title also expanded the duration of FISA physically search and surveillance orders, and gave authorities the ability to share information gathered before a federal grand jury with other agencies. So we're looking at how these surveillance tactics or techniques, if you will, can be implemented. And it makes me think of the BIE, the Black Identity Extremist Group, and how the Patriot Act is not supposed to be in violation of First Amendment rights. But I digress. And not saying that I support anybody who's involved in terrorist activities, but there are a lot of individuals that are on the BIE list that are there because of their association, not by their activity. I'm going to continue reading. The scope and availability of wiretapping and surveillance orders were expanded under Title II. Wiretaps were expanded to include addressing and routing information to allow surveillance of packet switch networks. The Electronic Privacy Information Center, EPIC, objected to this, arguing that it does not take into account email or web addresses, which often contain content in the address information. The act allowed any district court judge in the United States to issue such surveillance orders and search warrants for terrorism investigations. Search warrants were also expanded with the act amending Title III of Stored Communications Access Act to allow the FBI to gain access to stored voicemail through a search warrant rather than through the more stringent wiretap laws. So, what does that sound like to you, Bones? I'm just curious. Grand Rising Arthur Gray.
Trouble.
Well,
no sellout.
Said big trouble in Little China.
Whole lot of trouble.
It says the act, I'm going to repeat this, says the act allowed any district court judge in the United States to issue such surveillance orders and search warrants for terrorism investigations. Such warrants were also expanded with the act among Title III of the Stored Communications Access Act to allow the FBI to gain access to stored voicemail through a search warrant rather than through the more stringent wiretap laws. So they can go through a search warrant versus wiretap laws. So they basically circumvented being able to access voicemail.
Yep.
So LJ Free says, so by definition, would a sovereign citizen be a non-U.S. citizen? Meaning the act would directly apply to them. Yeah.
They should fall apart.
Yeah. That's why the FBI considers those that are moving towards the sovereign citizen movement to be terrorists based off of what we're reading.
Domestic terrorists, so yeah, they fall right up under that.
So it says various provisions allowed for the disclosure of electronic communications to law enforcement agencies. Those who operate or own a protected computer can give permission to authorities to intercept communications carried out on the machine, thus bypassing the requirements of the wiretap status. The definition of a protected computer is defined in 18 U.S.C. United States Code 1030E, paragraph 2, and broadly encompasses those computers used in interstate or foreign commerce or communication, including ones located outside the United States. The law governing obligatory and voluntary disclosure of customer communications by cable companies was altered to allow agencies to demand such communications under U.S.C. Title 18. Provisions relating to the disclosure. Go ahead.
I don't know if anybody caught that. Cable companies have the ability to record you. That digital signal again.
Yeah, they were given that capability when you went from, remember when our cable was analog, and then they made it a requirement for us to use digital boxes.
Yeah, I wonder who did that. Government was coming in giving away digital boxes to get you on that digital TV. I remember the campaign. All you had to do is call in, and they'll send the box to people's houses. Yeah. Had you racing in line to spy on yourself. Ain't that something?
So it says Title 18 provisions related to disclosure of electronic communications, Chapter 119, PIN registers and trap and trace devices, Chapter 206, and store communications, 121, though it excluded this disclosure of cable subscriber viewing habits. Subpoenas issued to internet service providers were expanded to include not only the name, address, local, and long-distance telephone toll billing records, telephone number, or other subscriber number or identity, and length of service of a subscriber, but also session times and durations, types of services used, communication devices, addresses information, i.e. IP addresses, payment method, and bank account and credit card numbers. Communication providers are also allowed to disclose customer records or communications if they suspect there is a danger to life and limb. So basically, the cable companies have the right to give all your information, not just your name, number, IP address, credit card information. They're authorized to give all of that stuff. So there are a lot of, remember the big push? Have you ever wondered why the cable companies bundle their packages so now you do cable and telephone? It makes it easier for that to happen.
Yes, sir. Put them all on one service, one IP. They even run the phones through computers now.
What's going on, Carrie? How you doing, bro?
Grand Rising, Carrie. Glad you can join us.
Peace, Carrie.
So yeah, anytime you want to chime in on this, bro, go ahead. This is far more reaching than I anticipated or expected. So all of our cable companies that we subscribe to have the ability or are required by law to give out all this information if asked for.
Like Doodle Vision just said, that's why you have to connect your YouTube, your Facebook, Twitter, etc. through your email address. Think about it now when you get a new phone. If you don't put that email address in there, that phone is just a dead brick. Everything you think they don't know, they know.
Free says, prior to cable TV used to go off at a certain time. Yeah, 12 midnight. She said she's telling her age. She said they'd be playing the Star Spangled Banner with the backdrop of a waving American flag. She said sounds like a precursor to me.
Mm-hmm. Loyalty. Let us in your house and see what you're doing. We ain't gonna tell nobody else.
And look, for the most part, most of us citizens are, we're pretty bland, boring people. But at the end of the day, that don't mean we want somebody all in our business. Because the argument is if you're not doing anything wrong, you don't have anything to hide. But at the same time, nobody wants our government to be spying in on us like this.
I'm sitting down in the house and you watching me. Every place I go, my TV looking. Nah, I'm straight. Yeah, even when they off, because there's no such thing as off with a digital signal. It ain't never off. Let your phone stay off for like a month, turn it back on. Don't it have a correct date and time?
Yeah, just sleep with the screen off. Or we'll sleep with the screen off. So let's talk about some more about this Title II. It says Title II established the three very controversial provisions: sneak and peek warrants, roving wiretaps, and the ability of the FBI to gain access to documents that reveal the patterns of U.S. citizens. The so-called sneak and peek law allowed for delayed notification of the execution of search warrants. The period before which the FBI must notify the recipient of the order was unspecified in the Act. The FBI field manual says that it is a flexible standard, and it may be extended at the court's discretion. These sneak and peek provisions were struck down by Judge Ann Aiken on September 26, 2007, after a Portland attorney, Brandon Mayfield, was wrongly jailed because of the searches. The court found the searches to violate the provision that prohibits unreasonable searches in the Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Roving wiretaps are wiretap orders that do not need to specify all common carriers and third parties in a surveillance court order. These are seen as important by the Department of Justice because they believe that terrorists can exploit wiretap orders by rapidly changing locations of communication devices such as cell phones, while opponents see it as a violating the particular clause of the Fourth Amendment. Another high controversial provision is one that allows FBIs to make an order requiring the product of any tangible things, including books, records, papers, documents, and other items for an investigation to protect against international terrorism or clandestine intelligence activities, provided that such investigation of the United States person is not conducted solely upon the basis of activities protected by the First Amendment of the Constitution. So I'm going to read that part again.
Please do. Thank you very much.
Another highly controversial provision is one that allows the FBI to make an order requiring the production of any tangible things, including books, records, papers, documents, and other items for an investigation to protect against international terrorism or clandestine intelligence activities, provided that such investigation of the United States person is not conducted solely upon the basis of activities protected by the provision. Which is the reason why when we talk about being very careful about the searches that you have on YouTube or Google searches, is because some of your searches may be innocent, but as you continue to search for those items and then you start to go down that rabbit hole and then look at purchasing some of those items because you're curious, every keystroke is monitored. I hate to say it that way, but it is. And I don't like it, but that's what, Again, if you're not doing anything illegal, you ain't got nothing to worry about. But at the end of the day, what about the people that you associate with? How well do you know them? How well do you know what their activities are? And the last thing that you can afford to be is guilty by association if somebody is on the Black Identity Extremist list or considered a domestic terrorist because they're, using air quotes, interested in sovereign citizenship.
See, the key is, LJ Free, when they say books, don't think of books that you read. There's different form of books, financial books, anything. You get deeper into it, you can see through the Patriot Act, they can seize your whole bank account.
And also, too, some forms of our passports are considered books. You got passbooks.
Yep. You have to look at the government's definition of books. Anything that's put together with pages and binded is considered a book. Don't when people get arrested, they say book them. Think about it.
And James says, "Stow the book out." So we're gonna read a little bit more, because people starting to get depressed and antsy. So we'll.
Just sharing the information. We're gonna break it all down though, put it in perspective how it ties in,
Right.
And solution.
So it says, let's see, where was I at? Okay, though it was not targeted directly at, hold on, nope, that's not it. Okay, yeah, though it was not targeted directly at libraries, the American Library Association in particular opposed this provision in resolution passed on June 29, 2005. They stated that the Section 215 of the U.S. Patriot Act allows the government to secretly request and obtain library records of large numbers of individuals without any reason to believe they are involved in illegal activity. However, the ALA's stance did not go without criticism. One prominent critic of the ALA stance was Manhattan Institute Heather McDonald, who argued in an article for the New York City Journal that the furor over Section 215 is a case study in Patriot Act fearmongering. The title also covers a number of other miscellaneous provisions, including the expansion of the number of Fisk judges from 7 to 11, 3 of which must reside within 20 miles of the District of Columbia, trade sanctions against North Korea, and Taliban-controlled Afghanistan, and the employment of translators by the FBI. At the instance of Republican Representative Richard Armey, the act had a number of sunset provisions built in, which were originally set to expire on December 31st, 2005. The sunset provisions of the acts also took into account any ongoing foreign intelligence investigations and allowed them to continue once the sections had expired. The provisions that were to expire are below. So we'll talk about them. But I wanted to just basically talk about the overall Patriot Act itself and why we're covering it. Copper Color Queen says, learn something new every day. The reason why we wanted to cover the Patriot Act, because it's imperative for people to understand that the United States government takes terrorism very seriously. This is not a joke to them.
I want to touch on something that you started in the beginning of this section.
Go ahead.
Where it mentioned your library activity. And a lot of people be like, oh, what they got to do with it? Or some of us are old enough to remember your library card is attached to your social security number. We can remember back in school that you could have had a book that you owed in elementary school. When you came to graduate, it popped up, didn't it?
Yep.
These are things that's attached to your social security number.
And when it comes to social media, there are many of us who are new to the social media world, i.e. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and all the other various social media platforms. And just like the cable companies are bound by these, so are the social media platforms. That's why we always tell people that be careful of what you're typing in these back chats and in these chat groups. Be careful of what you're saying in these groups, in these chats, because it's being recorded. And when we said it was being recorded, we weren't saying it was being recorded by the people in the chat. We were trying to explain to you that it's being recorded by the social media apparatus and the cable company that you're using. Even if you're using Wi-Fi, that's connected to somebody's cable company. That's connected to somebody's cable. So they have to record it. So just because you delete something does not mean it's gone. I was in IT for over 20 some odd years. I don't care how strong your magnet is and how much you think you can remove something off of a hard drive. There is forensic software that can pull it up. Trust and believe it. So you're not doing anything or getting away with something that they can't recover. They got years and years of experience. And that's the reason why we are very cautious and just basically telling people be careful of people that you are associating yourself with on social media, because you don't know them. You don't know what their intentions are. You don't know what their history is. You know, vouching for people and verifying people and going on their channels and having bills with them, that, you know, that's all fine and dandy. But if you're in the back chats communicating with them and all of a sudden these activities are going on where it starts talking about sovereign activity and sovereign citizenship, and they're dropping links and pages in the websites, and you going on and clicking with us, now you're starting to be associated with these people. And James says, if you think you aren't being monitored, have you ever been talking to someone with your phone in your pocket in sleep mode, and as soon as you pick it up and advertisements pop up on the same topic? Think about it.
And Doodle Vision hit it right on the head. Where you put the statement, if you think you aren't being monitored, have you ever been talking to someone with your phone in your pocket in sleep mode, and as soon as you pick it up again, advertisements pop up on the same topic? Just like when you search online, you never notice through your Google profile, you get ads and commercials dictated on what you watch. Just like your YouTube page. What shows up on your stream ain't gonna be the same because it's dictated off of what you click on when you're searching online.
Mr. TJ says they put folks in place talking reckless to see what you say. Well, he said that's a grade school tactic. But at the end of the day, I mean, you know, one of the things that I found very interesting about this medium, people get very comfortable on these social media platforms telling their business. Not all, but some. And they act as if this stuff isn't being recorded or that no one's listening. And then they think just because they delete it or they edit it that the original document is not in place. If this Patriot Act doesn't show you that everything is recorded and you can't hide from it, then I really don't know what to tell you.
I like what LJ Free just put up in there. Iris equals I. In reverse, Iris equals Siri. Think about it.
So we're not saying this to scare you. And we're not saying this for you to be anti-government. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is just be mindful of what's going on and that understand that our government has agendas. It's like every government has agendas. And they put this in place under the auspice of terrorism. So what can we as a community do to combat this? And why are we talking about this? Other than the fact of, letting people know that, nothing that they say or nothing that they do is done in private. It goes back.
They tripping.
I know, right? The chat is going crazy. At the end of the day, we are not helpless. And this is not a speech for overthrowing the government by any stretch of the imagination. But what I am imparting on us to understand is that we must become involved in our community. We must become involved in every aspect of our government. First starting with yourself. First starting at your household, then your community, then your government locally, and then regionally, and then through the United States as a whole. So how can we affect the change, or in some way make sure that the Patriot Act does not affect us as it's not supposed to? Meaning, allowing the Patriot Act to be used for what it's supposed to be used for, and that's fighting terrorism. One of the best ways to do that is, one, find out who you are, do your genealogy, tie into your tribe, help your tribe get their constitutions right and their bylaws so they can have a stronger government-to-government relationship, so that as we work with our nonprofit organizations, 501c4s, C5s, and C6s that have the ability to influence legislation, we can make sure that this terrorist act doesn't affect the American Indian community.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
look at it this way. We've seen the technology advance right in front of our eyes. Let's use Facebook, for instance. Remember at one time you used to take a picture and you would have to tag the people that's in the picture with you.
Mm-hmm.
Now when you put it on there, the automatic face recognition start labeling who the people are. Then that's in Facebook. So if that's in Facebook, what do you think they're using?
James says, can someone on the panel look up the now closed image vision in Texas? Can someone on the panel look up the now closed image vision in Texas? I'll look it up, James. I don't think I understand exactly what you're referring to, but I'll type it in just like you said it. But no, Bones, you're absolutely right. It's just we have to be involved in our community. And being involved in our community, we will make sure that the Patriot Act does not have a negative or adverse effect on us. Because at the end of the day, that's all we can control. What happens to us? So, James, I will look it up. And let's not forget those nonprofit entities, 4, 5, and 6, do what? They allow us to have influence over what? Legislation.
Political campaigns and legislation. We can't say we can't do it or can't change it or don't have a chance if we're sitting on the bench. We got to get up and get active. We done read before in 1906, someone had a meeting in Congress and let it be known that it was too many of us, so in a vote, they can never keep power. We already know if 30% of our population was just to shift, that turns a whole election at any given time. We want to be heard, we got to use our voice. You can't be heard being quiet sitting at the back of the bus, and we're choosing to be there now.
So, James, what about the image vision in Texas? Am I looking for? You said the now closed image vision. What specifically? Because I put it in the search engine. The now closed image vision in Texas, and
Nah, I think I found what he was looking for.
okay.
Because I remember we were talking about it before. I'm loading it up just to make sure.
Okay. So again, the goal is not to scare people into hating the United States government, but it's to make us aware that if we don't do anything or if we don't participate in our government, that it can have a negative or adverse an effect on us that it never intended.
Their website is imagevision.com.
Imagevision.com. Okay. So we have a recourse.
They're the leaders in facial biometrics, automatic image and video face recognition and face demographic scalable to billions of images and thousands of comparisons per second. Motion recognition, leveraging patent pending optic flow and feature extraction techniques. Image vision detects changes in video frame by frame, classifying and categorizing actions and motion. Text recognition. If your business revolves around user content and you are connected with image-based advertising or unwanted speech, image vision can help. Objective recognition. Within a single image, there are multiple objects which image vision identifies by leveraging patent algorithms with hundreds of visual features. Now, the question is, when you be hearing about this software, they always tell you they can use it and compare it against thousands of images. Where do you think they got these thousands of images from?
I can answer that question. So it says our clients. So you want to know who some of their clients are? Y'all ready?
Drop it on them.
Apple, Facebook, Flickr, Intel, BTIC, Mutual Mind, Uvu, Photo Bucket, ReadyPost, Samsung, Tango.
Between Facebook, Flickr, Photo Bucket, and Apple,
You pretty much,
yeah.
yeah. James says, "Ask me how I know about the company." Come on, ask me. All right, James, how do you know about the company? Tell us, tell us. You might as well come on in and talk because you got the link. I sent it to you. So come on in, stop playing. Iron Flying Squirrel says Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at the end of the day, if you have an iPhone or you have a Samsung phone, you're. I mean,
They telling you right there.
most people either have an iPhone or a Samsung. That would be 90% of the United States population, right there. And
Yep.
if you have a Mac or you have a computer with an Intel processor, everybody's pretty much covered.
I think all computers are Intel processors.
Mm-hmm.
They have an AMD. The AMD just overclock chips that they don't put the Intel name on. So still.
Again, we're not saying this to scare people or to make people hate the government. We're just letting you know that under no circumstances is any of your information private.
Yes, PhotoBucket LJ free. Yes, PhotoBucket is one of their clients. Over billions of images a day. Cheese.
What's the
All them
photo?
selfies.
So is that place where people store photos?
Yep, a free photo place where you can just store photos at.
Oh, okay.
Just like Flickr, no different than Facebook. I mean, Apple, they definitely got you because as sure as you got an Apple, you already know all that's tied into iTunes.
Mm-hmm.
What's really going on?
Grand Rising James. So come on and share, as they say, spill a tea. I think I'm saying it right. So what you got, sir?
Greetings to everyone. I hope everyone can hear me loud and clear. It's Grand Rising.
Yeah, we got you.
The reason why I said ask me, I know because I had first-hand inside knowledge of that particular company and what they've done and what they did. And I was trying to tell some of the people in the back chat this years ago. And it deals with your voice recognition, your facial recognition, and all of this. Well, a couple of years ago, they came before me and a few others when they said that they were going out of business. And then they explained why they were going out of business. It's because they sold the algorithm and all of the rights to the US government, which is why when you do certain rallies and go to certain places, you will see a lot of people with cameras, and they dress like they're civilians with cameras. They don't say anything, but they're sitting in unmarked police cars, and they're just with their cameras. And you think, oh, these undercover cops are just recording us. No, they're watching you and putting in your facial recognition. You've seen these movies where they scan someone's face on the thing digitally, and then they run it through the database, and it gets a hit and said, oh, this is Akbar Nadududar, and he is the leader of the Pakistani group or whatever. You've seen it on these movies and never paid attention to it. Never paid attention to it. You go somewhere now, even Google Maps and Google Photos, the places that you go, at the end of the month, it'll say, oh, all the places you visited last month. We don't pay attention to these things. We just sit up there nilly-willy and saying whatever and doing whatever. But again, we're the agents. We're trying to stop you from turning into an unknown, unwilling informant, but we're the agents.
But hold on. Check. Stop. Back up. Pause. Freeze. You said they sold this technology to the United States government.
Yes, sir. That's why that business is now closed. When I was explaining to people, when they say, "Oh, what multi-million dollars deals have you done, James?" Well, that was one of the deals, and I was getting inside information and trying to give it back to people in the back chats because I'm telling you, I've toured the facility. I helped them get established. Please listen to what I'm telling you. Stop being reckless. Stop being stupid. Don't put your family in danger.
Like they said in the chat, they're ushering refrigerators with Wi-Fi. Why your fridge need a Wi-Fi? Why your fridge need Wi-Fi? Your oven got
Well,
Wi-Fi.
I'll give
Microwave
you
got
one better.
Wi-Fi.
I'll give you one better. The last thing that they did, because they brought it as a presentation, and I was like, wow. The latest, if you have an NFL jersey, an official NFL jersey from 2015 to newer, there is a chip inside of the shield when you are in your when you have the NFL uniforms. There's a chip in there, and that chip traces you. They said they put the chip in there
FBI.
to whether it's authentic or not. But it's the same type of chip that they use when you use for your pets. When you're trying to when you lose your pet, it's the same chip that's in there.
Mm-hmm. First family that did it was 2004 in Florida was the first family fully chipped. They done got so good at it. The eye on the Gillette packet on your razors and Gillette products is a RFID chip.
Yes, sir.
Most of the products in your house that you buy, the eye on the Cheerios box is a RFID chip. It's on all packaging and stuff now.
So while you talking reckless and you rocking your NFL gear, and they also had a deal with Major League Baseball, and they were trying to close a deal on the NBA. So while you rocking all your gear, your throwback gear that you just bought since 2005, and guess what? You got a chip in there. Think about it. So you go ahead and go on out and do what you're doing. Keep acting reckless, and you can't say, "Oh, it wasn't me." So not only do they have your facial recognition, they also have the chip to say that you were there. So go ahead, keep doing what you're doing. I yield the mic.
Never noticed? Be walking around town, past a restaurant, you get a coupon or an ad for that restaurant directly beamed to your phone.
Via Bluetooth.
You leave someplace, your phone tell you, "Oh, you just left such and such. How did you like the service?"
And that was established by image vision. I'll tell you, it's like, the more you travel the world, the more you realize how small the world actually is.
Hold on, James. You just made me think of something. So, again, this is not an anti-government show. We're not saying we're anti-government. We're not saying this to scare people. We're just making you aware of what these laws allows the government to do and what happens when we don't participate in these laws. So, it is what it is. So, this is not to scare people or make them hate the government. But the question that I have to ask you, James, is this. When did they sell this technology to the United States? Because you said all jerseys from 2015 and newer, right? So that means 2015, 16, 17, 18, all the way up to current today, right? So did they?
Yes, sir.
So did they sell this? So they sell the jerseys. They must have sold them before. They must have sold the jerseys. I mean, the technology, excuse me, to the United States government around 2013, 2014.
As a matter of fact, it was 2012.
Okay.
What they were doing was they were working in conjunction with the government, and then the government said, "Hey, we'll just buy you guys out." And so
In 2010, they received the $2 million investment towards their technology.
And you have to know who gave that investment. See, now you're following the breadcrumbs. Y'all are on it. That's why I said y'all the most intelligent group I've ever been around in my whole life. And I've been around a lot of people all over the world.
So here's the thing, and this goes back to what we were talking about as far as the nonprofit and the way things operate. So this would be a section of the Department of Defense.
That is correct.
The Department of Defense pays the NFL to have their people on the field when they're doing the Star Spangled Banner, when somebody's singing on the platform. So they could be paying the NFL to put those chips in those jerseys.
Now you with it. And you notice the NBA, they have their military night, they're doing the same thing. Major League Baseball, they're doing the same thing. They're just following suit of the NFL. Same thing.
And those jerseys aren't cheap, from what I understand.
No, sir, they are not. So you are paying a nonprofit for you to be monitored by another nonprofit.
Yeah. So this is a situation of nonprofits at work, and how by us not being involved, how this could adversely affect us. So what we must do, one, again, clean up our own house. Meaning that if we're involved either intentionally or unintentionally with individuals who knowingly, because people make mistakes, who knowingly are doing things that's going to put themselves on these lists, then we need to move away from them. Like for all of us that have kids, you always tell your kids to stay away from bad influences, right? Don't associate with people that are doing bad and have no good intentions. Why is it on the YouTube streets we are so enamored with those individuals and will stay with them at all costs because we don't want to lose their friendship? I don't get that. But we'll tell our kids to do something different. Your children don't do what you say, they do what you do. So we need to be mindful of the individuals that we allow in our circle, specifically on social media. I mean, am I off base, James? Am I off base, Bones?
I don't think so.
I'm finna read something about image vision I pulled up real quick. It says, with billions of photos and videos shared via social media every day, arguably social media's greatest asset is its free supply of user-generated and user-shared content. By combining real-time visual recognition technology with artificial intelligence and machine learning, Image Vision provides social media and multimedia sites the tools to automate the recognition and monetization of their visual content to both grow revenue and protect their advertisers' brands. Image Vision's real-time visual search engine is used by market leaders such as Apple, Facebook, PhotoBucket, and Yahoo to power image search, brand analytics, ad tailoring, and avoid issues with objectionable content.
So the reason why we're emphasizing this is because as we're moving forward and we're finding out who we are as a people, we can ill afford to have our way of life interrupted before it even gets started.
And if you think it doesn't happen in real time, I'm gonna throw this disclaimer out. The views and opinions expressed on the Grand Rising Show are those of James Flames, aka Doodle Vision, and not those of A2 or any of its affiliates. Now that I put that disclaimer out there, when people come on YouTube and they use someone else's content on their channel and they say, man, they striking us down and I don't know why, and we off the air, I don't know what's happening. Guess what? That is that technology that they're using in real time. They send it is a digital record that they send, and they say, oop, you're using copyrighted material. Take them off the air immediately. So while you in mid-sentence, they're taking you off your YouTube stream because you're using information that has been copyrighted, trademarked, that you don't have permission to use.
Say it again.
In real time.
Say it again, because I ain't hear you. Say it one more time.
When you get on there and you're using images and you're using audio and using video and you don't have permission to do it when it says it's copyrighted, trademark, and then you're like, oh man, they took us off the air, man. It's them haters over there on that other show. No, it is because it is this same technology that this company sold to the U.S. government. And I'm gonna say this again, Brother Bones, if you haven't pulled up. How much did they get of seed money to start up this company? Can you go back again?
They first raised $4 million. In total, $14 million. That's what they
That was
raised.
seed money. Seed
Mm-hmm.
money.
$14 million to get this technology mastered.
But it doesn't say on there who invested it, does it?
Nope. It says in the end, $175 million was put towards it.
Well,
And that's just the 175 million. That's just the investment money. That's not how much money they made. So again,
Mhm.
when these knuckleheads try to say, "Jay, what multi-million-dollar projects you been involved in, man?" That's all I'm gonna say. I yield the mic.
Antonio says, watch the movie Snowden with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. He said they've had the technology for a decade now. They can access your webcam, cameras, mics, as long as a battery is in the device, or as long as it's plugged up.
Yeah, and these devices have internal batteries. Enemy of the State showed you that the movie. If you know anything about the movie, they had a contract with the government to use government technology for the movie. Why did they use it? Because it was outdated. Even the movie Eagle Eye, it was outdated technology. So imagine what they're able to really do. If they're showing you this in movies, that's nothing compared to what they can do. And again, we're not saying this for you to be afraid or to hide. No, just bring an awareness so our communities know the obstacles that we face. And some people out there trying to do things to relieve the stress of life can put themselves in the line of fire of these mechanisms.
And also, too, we don't want to be in a situation to where we're associated with individuals who intentionally are doing this, and it's going to thwart anything that we're doing. Because think of it, look at it this way: what we're working towards, our goal is to help individuals become self-sufficient and their tribes to become self-sufficient. You know how much damage can be done to a tribe and their status if that tribe is associated with anybody who's on the BIE list or any terrorist activity. We can ill afford that. We will set them back hundreds of years. This is serious. This is nothing to play with. That's the reason why we're talking about this.
Everything they fought for years, they'll lose with overnight. But then people be like, oh, why they don't come out and speak up? Because you got to watch the actions that you're doing.
So Antonio Bessi says, if you have an Android phone, turn it on and say, okay, Google. A lot of people don't know that their phone is listening. Yeah. Even with iPhone, Siri's listening too. So again, not to incite fear or to scare people, just to make you aware of the technology and what it is capable of, and how, if people aren't on code and doing what they're supposed to do and doing right by people, you don't want to be associated with that type of individual or those type of individuals, because not only can it negatively affect you, but it can also negatively affect your tribe, either intentionally or unintentionally. That's the reason why we're putting this information out here. Not to be anti-government or anything like this. It's to make you cautious and aware, because now every move that we make, we can't just look at it from how it's going to affect us. It's how it's going to affect the tribes, how it's going to affect your community, and how it's going to affect the next 7 generations. That's called responsibility. Just something to think about.
Yes, because it's one thing to be monitored, and you know that you're being monitored. Again, it deals with character, because character is what you do when nobody's watching. That's the difference. Still move around and do what you need to do what you need to do when you start to become reckless. And we've mentioned a lot on this show about enemy of the state. The enemy of the state, remember, they were part of the national security, but the NSA. But who does the NSA report to? I'm not going to leave you hanging. The Department of Defense. I yield the mic.
So at the end of the day, we're not just coming out here to tell you or to scare you. We're also going to provide you with some solutions, because we have the ability to, one, get our house in order, two, get our community in order. 3, get our tribes in order. And then use our nonprofit entities, our organizations, to put ourselves in a position to where the Patriot Act does not adversely affect us. Because we're not going to get rid of that law. That's not going to happen. But what we can do is put ourselves in a position to where we are not negatively affected by it, and they're going after terrorists and not Indians or American Indians, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So there are mechanisms in place to put that to get that started. We just have to start on step 1.
And look at it this way.
Go ahead, Bo.
This is what we honest. Is the government spying? Is our government spying on us, or are we spying on each other for our government?
We spying on each other for our government because the government doesn't have that many pairs of eyes.
Facts. I'll take choice number 2.
That's why I said unknowing informant. You're not even being paid to be an informant.
So as
At least get paid. If you're gonna tell it, you can at least get paid.
if we change how we live, if we change our behavior, then by default, these mechanisms can't harm us. The only way they harm us when we use it unwisely.
I Am Flying Squirrel says it's time to unplug. Well, realistically speaking, I Am Flying Squirrel, that sounds good in theory, but that means not only are you going to be unplugging, you're basically going to be unplugging from society, because I don't know the people that you associate with. I don't know you, but trying to get people to unplug from their phones, cell phones are the biggest drug on the planet. I've watched people in restaurants. I've seen people in restaurants on dates. They're on their phone texting to other people and to each other. That's how addictive these phones are. So even though you may be able to unplug, that doesn't mean everybody around you will be able to unplug. And if you're unplugging, again, is the intent, we got, and I'm not implying the reason why you're unplugging, I'm Flying Squirrel, so please understand me. What is the intent of unplugging? Because that needs to be stated. Are you unplugging because you don't want the government in on your business? That's one thing. So it's the intent in which we do stuff. Because at the end of the day, we could just get organized to where these laws don't affect us. So they don't apply to us. We don't have to do such drastic means to have the rules or the laws in our favor. All we have to do is come together. All we have to do is utilize this on our behalf, what's been utilized against us. It's really not that hard.
And go back to the movie The Matrix. Remember, at one point they did unplug in order to find out who they are, but then they would plug themselves back in order to rescue others and complete the mission. So don't just completely unplug, or you'll be eating just raw porridge for the rest of your life, and you realize that the world has been destroyed. They plug themselves back in.
Facts, because you can't change the system outside of the system. You have to be within the system to make changes to a system.
And if you care about your people, then you gotta go where your people at, right?
Say it again. You got to go into the fire to go get them.
So
because if you unplug, they can't hear you.
What was that? No sellout. What you say?
Well, I ain't say a word.
Okay. Like you said, James, if they can't hear you, you ain't gonna be able to reach them. And in order for them to reach you, you gotta go get them. You gotta talk to them. At the end of the day, it's just a fact of reaching the people that resonate with you. Again, we're not here to tell everybody that they Indian. We're not here to tell anybody where they're from. We're here to help those individuals who want to tie into their tribe, help their tribe, and doing so, themselves becoming self-sufficient and helping their tribes become self-efficient. That's what we're here for. Anything else outside of that? Yeah, we not that has nothing to do with us. And if you find out that you're African or what have you, great. We'll help you find your house. Because at the end of the day, we're not here to tell people who they are. We're here to help people find out who they are. So I always
And
like to
then,
put that out there.
good question. Look at it this way: who's easier to lead you out the fire? The person that's stuck in there with you, or the person that came out and came back in to lead you out, or even show you the way out? And that's what those of us who wake up, for lack of a better word, our responsibility is to go back in and point to the exit. We can't make nobody take the exit. We're not here to force anybody to take the exit. But our responsibility is to inform you that there is an exit, that there is a way.
Yeah, look at it from this standpoint. And I know you're asking the question, so I appreciate you asking that question because it's a question that people are thinking about, Antonio. What is a firefighter's job? A firefighter's job is to go in there while everybody's running out, and some people might be stuck in there. So firefighters go through training so they can know what they're going to be coming across when they go in there, right? And they can navigate and traverse. Now they can't prepare for everything, but they're better prepared than someone who's not a fighter. They have all the equipment, and they have the backup, and they have the resources necessary. So when we come in to help the community, we're coming with not only just information, but we're coming with the resources as well. So by coming with the resources, we're not just giving you ideas. We had a conversation about ideas yesterday. We're coming with ideas, and we're telling you what the steps are, and then we're going to walk you through the process. And it goes back to what I said yesterday. If someone tells you that they got a process, but they can't tell you the steps, by default, they don't have a process. Because the steps are the framework from which the process sits under. So we just laid out the steps of how we can actually work with and ensure and make sure that the Patriot Act, who is that law, will never be removed. But we can work together and make sure that law does not adversely affect us. Because just like they have 501c4, 5s, and 6s that protect them, we can do the same thing for us. If we have the tools, we have the resources, and we have the means to get it done and get it set up. But first, we have to clean our own house, because it does us no good to put all this together and then we have terrorists on our team. It basically messes up the whole process. So
Yep. 'Cause what was that movie about firefighters and all these great fires kept starting, and then they found out at the end one of their own setting the fire. That's it. So when you got these so-called Indians talking about, we're here to put out the fire. They find out it's one of your own. Now exchange fire for acts of terrorism, talking reckless. That's what they're doing. They're coming in the uniform, but they had already gone earlier to start the fire, trying to be the hero. I want to be the leader. I want to be the supreme. Think about it. I yield the mic.
So
I'm sorry. I think I went too far. I apologize. Rewind that. Edit that. When y'all upload it, edit that part.
How about that? LJ Free says, my phone posted my message 3 times. I'm about to throw this thing in the trash. It's been real, y'all. We have to realize we're smarter than the devices that we're using, and don't let the devices use us. Again, that don't mean you throw the device away. And I know you're joking, LJ Free. But you just be more aware of what's going on. Be aware of your associations with people and how some of the things that they say and recognize that, because at the end of the day, we all joke, we all have fun. But if someone's talking reckless constantly and they're saying things that could potentially put them on this terrorist list, you might want to have a conversation with them, or at least stop associating with them. And unfortunately, it might be your family. It happens sometimes. What do you say? Talk about mattresses with somebody and watch how you see mattresses pop up later. Yeah, I mean, again, it goes back to these devices are listening. That's what they're designed to do. And basically, that's what we bought them for, if you think about it. We bought these devices to make our lives easier. And in making our lives easier, it makes it also easier for the government to spy on us. And for companies to benefit off of our spending habits. Because the government's not the only entity benefiting from this. Don't get it twisted.
You got to look at what these social media platforms are. They're nothing but email pools. Email pools for advertising companies, for new products, for test marketing. That's all it really is. Why do you think they give it to you free? But now you can see the changes now. They don't need the free content anymore. They don't need us to draw people to it. That's why the policies are changing.
That's exactly how they suck you in, and we don't realize that. And my economics teacher used to always say, there's no free lunch. Somebody's paying somewhere, and eventually you are going to pay. I'll give you an example, because you all know that I go back to the days of Blog Talk Radio. Blog Talk Radio used to be free, and they hooked enough people, they started charging you for putting your own content out there. Think about it.
And that's eventually what YouTube is going to do.
Yes, sir.
Which is the reason why it's important for those who have outlets to make sure you have your own webpage so that you can store your content on your webpage so that you benefit and it's controlled. Because as long as it's on YouTube, it's their content. It's no longer your content. Think about it. Whenever you record something and you put it on YouTube, it puts it in a format that YouTube plays. Try to play that same format on some other device and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Now, YouTube is also deleting channels right now, so you don't own any of your content anyway.
By the thousands. They said thousands they are deleting.
Yeah, that's their new policies. They're making that shift. The change was now, and you notice that YouTube is showing television. So if it's showing TV, they already bought over the main, what we're going to call them, commercialized content creators. So they don't need the everyday content creators. So now anything that's outside the line of what they advertisers want, like what we read on the image vision, these mechanisms were designed for companies. So now if you're putting stuff up or you talking a particular reckless way, and these companies feel like it goes against their brand, what you think is happening? How is it your YouTube channel? Where's your receipt for purchase? The advertiser got a receipt. Where's yours? It looks so good.
That's how they get us. Free 99. Pat Terrell Uncle says LJ Free Facts. The left hand is waving while the right hand in your pocket. So again, this is not an anti-government talk. We're not anti-government. We're just letting you know what the law allows these companies to do and how these companies are benefiting from the law. So if that's the case, why can't you benefit from these laws? Why can't you benefit from these funds? Just because these companies are using this information and this technology for nefarious intent, it is possible for us to use this technology for good intent, isn't it? I mean,
Duality.
we can do that,
Everything
can't
has
we?
to do.
So the goal is not to, bang on the government or bang on companies that are using this to spy. Can you see how we can use this technology to make it easier for people to find out who they are? To make the family trees information flow faster. Make it easier for
Now
people
we
to tie
talking.
into their tribes faster.
Now we talking.
That's how we can use this technology. That's how we can benefit our people. Spreading this information so people know who they are. So when you pull up or when you make a request or there is a search on Indian, you don't just see the Latino version of what an Indian looks like based off of what media perpetuates. You start to see our faces. You start to see our tribes. You start to see our constitutions. You start to see our bylaws. You start to see what we're doing and how we're perpetuating, and how we're making a change in our communities. That's how we can use this technology to not only help ourselves, but to help our communities. Right?
Yep. Like I said, that same technology that sends you ads, walk past particular genealogy places, certain tribal place, and you get that information.
Can you imagine somebody typing in something, putting their first and their last name, and then a pop-up ad comes and be like, "Did you know your surname shows up on on these tribes' rolls?"
Your phone can show you location. Just imagine it showing you the location of people that you just located at a family. Just imagine the possibilities of what we can use this, like you said, this technology for. Leave a roadmap for the 7 generations. Make the next ones that come behind us in the next months or so jobs for genealogy a lot more easier. Just imagine if we invested in this cloud service technology. Server, we start saving our information. We start spreading our information. We can't sit here, let somebody else take advantage of this technology, take advantage of what information and content goes out, then want to complain when it doesn't fit our narrative. We're allowing them to do it. We're financing it.
And another thing we got to realize, and something that we talked about, is the government stays out of your business when you mind your business. So if we're governing ourselves and we're making sure that we have no terrorists in our midst, why would the government even intervene? Why would they even interfere? Because we're minding our business. They have no reason. You got to look at it this way. The government spends millions and even billions of dollars to fight terrorism. So if we're fighting terrorism in our own community, that's money that they don't have to spend on our people. So would that be beneficial for them, or would that be detrimental to them? I'll wait. We got to start looking at things from a perspective of how we could use this information to help us instead of focusing on how this information has been hurting us. Look at all the things that we can do with this technology and how we can further help people find out who their family are. That's how I'm looking at it. Can you imagine typing in Alabama and then realizing there are, pulling up information or having an ad pop up and be like, did you realize there were 70 pieces of property in Alabama that are in a trust that no one has claimed yet?
Real information. Life-changing info we're talking about.
In Macadam 1, you can own servers. At the end of the day, once we set these entities up, the resources are there. I'm gonna repeat this: the resources are there for us to own those servers. We just have to tap into them.
To go even further, that's our next thing that we're working on.
So again, we're not just gonna be here telling you what the problem is. We're gonna tell you or expose to you what the potential problem is, and we're gonna offer you solutions. So the goal was not to scare you. The goal was to prepare you.
Mm-hmm.
So think of what we invest our money in now that's using this technology, to how you can invest that money to help with what you're trying to promote. So think about this. Instead of having a jersey with that tag, with that RFD tag on it, can you imagine having that tag or similar tag in some garb from your ancestors, and it gives a brief history and description
Of your whole tribal history, of who you are, where you come from. Now we talking.
Can you imagine using that technology with your phone, where you can start recognize tribes?
Think about it. You can point your phone towards the stars and it'll tell you all the constellations. So it's possible. These are realistic goals. Just takes activation.
LJ Free says, could you imagine if your GPS pinged every time you were in the area where your ancestors traveled or settled? That means your GPS be pinging all the time. All you gotta do is go past the university.
Sound like them people when they be waiting for them likes on Facebook. Bing!
But now, Free, you're right. I mean, migration paths. Certain tribes had migration paths. So can you imagine you're in Alabama, and it talks about the migration path all the way up to Chicago. That's the reason why you got family up there, or you got family in Indiana, or you got family in Ohio, because of that migration path. I mean, there are a lot of uses that could benefit the American Indian, or anybody for that matter, not just American Indian, but anybody that, any tribe or any house. So instead of looking at it from how it has hurt us and how it has trapped us, let's look at how it can free us. Doodle Vision says Choctaw has a GIS specialist on staff. So, tribes are already starting to look at that. So that's what's up. So these are steps that we can take to put ourselves in a better positions. So again, like I said, we're not coming to sit at the table. We're coming to sit at the head of the table so that we can affect a positive change for our Indian community. And what I can promise you is it's going to have a positive change for every community. Because we will make sure we stay on goal. Because as long as we are minding our business, the government will never have to. Ask the NFL. Doodle Vision says they tracked the tribal migration patterns. So that's phenomenal. I am Flying Squirrel said I'll invest in that. Well, I am Flying Squirrel, you might not have to invest in it, but you might be able to partake in it, meaning that you might have a company that might have something to do with it, depending on what your predilection is or what your business goal is.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how many mechanisms are already in place to get a lot of these mechanisms for ourselves. That's why we go through the 501Cs. So you can see the different benefits. You have 501Cs that's in energy. You have 501Cs that's in technology. You have 501Cs that's in law, politics, infrastructure.
Banking.
Now imagine if we started using this.
Resources are there. We just have not tapped into them because of ignorance and fear. I'm just gonna call it like it is. Let's look at the possibilities of what we could do for our people and our tribes by taking this information and making it work for us. Because by doing nothing with it, we already see how it can and has been used against us. But again, everything starts with cleaning your house out first. You can't be up and running and then have terrorists in your house. I'm sorry, it don't work that way. So you gotta get the terrorists out your house. Clean your house. Get yourself straight first. Then work on your community. And then move outward from there. He says Image Vision started with two guys to stay in touch with, two guys who were trying to stay in touch with classmates. They never thought it would evolve into this. We have the same means to elevate our people. That's facts.
Look at even Facebook. Started as a college dating site. Look what it is today. And also remember, who put the startup capital for what we know as the internet today? Who financed that?
United States government.
Again, the U.S. government financed the infrastructure for what we know as the internet today. Go back and look up Al Gore.
Didn't he claim he invented the internet? I'm just saying.
Yeah, he was saying that because he was one of the main components when they were pushing for the government to finance it. They got the funding for it. Remember how internet changed overnight from AOL, what you see now.
Man, I can remember when, I'm about to date myself, but it's okay. I can remember when AOL had to dial up, right? I think it was in 96 when they were talking about going from an hourly service to a monthly service. And you had to, sign up for the monthly service. So you had to pay your money. And I can remember back in November 96 when they switched over. They started switching over. Everything was fine. But by January of 1997, the servers were crashing because you had so many people on those servers. But they were basically using the money for people that were signing up to buy the service. And also they was tapping into different funds. James says, Department of Defense funds it. Remember, I dream of genius. LJ Free says, so why are there so many missing children when that software can be used to search for them? That's a great question, Free. I don't know the answer to that question. Now, what I do know, do the vision because the CDC uses them as lab rats. One thing you got to realize too is that they sell devices that block phone service. They can block phone service within a mile radius. They sell them at the same places. They sell these jammers at the same places where they sell mace and those metal batons and
Just spots.
Say again?
Yeah, a lot of your so-called spy shops, spy and technology shops sell it.
But using those things is a crime.
I remember when you was able to buy your own FM AM radio kits out of Radio Shack. I wonder why they stopped that.
Yeah. To those ham radios.
Put a bunch of them together. I think that's what got me in trouble.
You said that's what got you in trouble.
Always taking something apart.
It's not always easy to take something apart than it is to put it back together, especially if you don't pay attention when you're taking it apart.
Wondering why you got extra screws.
But hopefully this information that we brought about the Patriot Act and how it's used can give you some insight on how you can use it to benefit your community. We have a tendency as a people to look at things that companies are doing and we see all the harm that it can cause us. But we very rarely look at what we can actually do with it ourselves and how we can help people and how we can help our people. It doesn't always have to be something negative or something bad or something destructive for that matter. Like I said, once we get in a position to where we can affect legislative change, then the Patriot Act will not be something that could negatively affect us. It will continue to be designed for what it was intended for, to stop terrorism. But like I said, we must clean up our own house. If we fight terrorism in our own neighborhood, then there will never be a reason for the Patriot Act to even be effective or enacted in our neighborhood. Something to think about. And the prime example is that if you've ever noticed in the neighborhoods, the more affluent neighborhoods have the least amount of police patrols. Why is that? Because those neighborhoods do a better job of policing themselves. It's very rarely that somebody will break into one of those houses. Why? They have lots of security.
They got that security for the security.
Same concept. You take a neighborhood that polices its own, then there's no need for the police to be there. But when the neighborhood does not police its own, then the police have to be there, right? I mean, that's common sense.
Yep.
If anybody in your neighborhood knows that if they're walking around doing something illegal, they're going to get turned in, then they'll stop doing it or they'll move to another community. Tell me I'm wrong. But if they know that their neighborhood is a safe haven for crime, that's where the crime is going to be committed. I don't understand why that's so difficult for people to understand.
Yes, that is why the Bloods and Crips originally started. Even the Black Panthers police our own communities. But somewhere in there, we forgot. And we glorify it for the negativity. Like I said, duality. Everything has a dual purpose. That's how we choose to use it.
Goes back to that old adage, mind your business. Stop minding other people's business. So, we're going to show you how to mind your business. Autonomous Assembly. We are a solution-based 501c3 whose purpose and intent is to help people do their genealogy, locate their tribes, tie into their tribes, and at the same time help themselves and their tribes become self-sufficient. That's us in a nutshell.
And no, we do not belong to the government or enforcers of the government. 501c do not.
(501c)s have more autonomy than most for-profit businesses.
More deadly.
Now ask me how I know. I have both. Due Division says this is for Lady Free. Patriot equals pet. Suppress or put down. Riot. Violent disturbance of the peace by a crowd. Patriot from the Latin petra, father. C. Padre. LJ Free says infighting can turn a tool into a weapon. A house divided cannot stand. You've got to know who you're yoked up with and what their end game is. That's facts.
They record said, how you know? Oh, you heard you like, oh, you have both. Yeah, we're not just here speculating. We actually do this on a day-to-day. 7 days a week, 365.
Macadon one, at the end of the day, it's all about exposing people to the information. I mean, this is as you know, this is not our information. We're just exposing people to it, giving them the sources so they could go do their research, and then come back and let us know if there was anything that we said that was inaccurate or false or fraudulent, so that we can correct it on spot. That's all. We're just a conduit. We're here to help. We do not claim to own this information because that's not what we're about.
No. Solutions and applications.
Tape course, that's why I left other channels. That's right, Free. The only way we can get it done is together, because anybody that claims that they're a self-made man or woman is a liar.
Got that right. Can't do nothing in this life by yourself. Somebody gave something for you to be able to do what you was able to do or what you wanted to do. Somebody sacrificed something, whether you know it or not.
If you're going to be, you can't be a chief if you don't have a tribe or a council that voted you in. Or as James always says, who died and made you chief? Because in order to be a chief, the chief had to have left so you could take that place. Terrorist says, self-made. You ain't no parents. Well, I mean, I've heard people say they come about information on their own, that no one taught them. They have no quote-unquote master teacher. Yeah, the chief isn't the loudest talker either. The chief is a representation of what the council has laid forth. They speak on behalf of the tribe. They speak on behalf of the request of the tribe. They do not speak for the tribe or as a tribe. They are not a dictator. Yeah. And I want to say something too. So I want to correct something. When if you have chief in your title and you come on the show, I don't not call you chief out of disrespect. I do not call you chief out of respect for my chief. So don't take it personal. If you're not, if I don't know that you are really a chief, I am not going to call you a chief. No,
just honoring our ancestors' ways. That's honoring our ancestors the right way.
Yeah. So don't take it personal, and there's no disrespect intended. So just know that's the reason why I won't say chief in front of your name or whatever it is. Because I haven't seen your constitution. I haven't seen your bylaws. I don't know who your council is. I don't know what tribe you're repping. So that's why I don't call you chief. So
did y'all hear that? Did everybody hear that? Understand what the man just said? James, Big Chief chewing gum.
I'll blow a bubble.
And also too, I understand that people choose these titles not knowing and not understanding. So it's not a shot at anybody. So please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But at the end of the day, once you're made aware, then there's a choice. So you are grown. You're free to do what you want to do. It's no different from me, and it's just my perspective. There's no different than me calling somebody a doctor that didn't earn a PhD, or call you an engineer if you didn't get your degree, or say you from DC if you never lived there, you were never born there. It's just out of common respect, common law, natural law, and tribal law.
Dude, no Dr. Dre.
Say again. Oh,
Dude said Dr. Dre.
No, Dr. Dre. I don't know. Does he have his doctorate?
David Corey said, but YouTube is a chief. No, YouTube got a chief, a CEO. Stop playing.
Okay, so can we get the other 17 people watching to come on in and catch this cab? The funny thing about that, there's actually more than 17 people watching. Those are just the people that are subscribed that actually have typed in at one particular time. So, Pantero says, I'm from Oakland, but never been there. Pantero, I don't know if you're I don't know if you're joking or what. Mr. TJ, he brought on 4 of his children. Doodle Vision said they'll go live shortly. Okay, I'm lost in chat. I don't know what that conversation was about. So David Corey says, I see the channel being big. Well, David, this is what I see. I'm not so much concerned with the channel as I am concerned with our communities. I see our communities growing and having a major impact and being able to be that light, that voice of reason, and showing people how to do things the right way, and being able to police our own communities, and making sure we stay on code and do the right things and correct the mistakes of our ancestors. Doodle Vision says other people watching but not typing in the chat will go live shortly. Why did I read that? So with that being said, man, is there anything that you wanna say before we end the show?
No, just basically for those who are listening, research the information that we're giving you. We also make sure to give you links so you can do it. Don't forget to also check out www.autonomousAssembly.com, where we have 50 free websites to help you with your genealogy. We also have on the genealogy page broken down for all the resources per state, and also tips and tricks so when you do hit brick walls during your genealogy. And if you have questions, you can also reach us at autonomousassembly@gmail.com. And again, that's www.autonomousassembly.com or www.aau.world.
James, Doodle Vision, aka Petty Pete, you got anything that you want to say before we head on out?
want to say I appreciate you all for allowing me to come on once again. And it's going to get better and better and better because now the load has been lifted. I appreciate all everything you all are doing, not only here in YouTube and in the back chats, but most importantly in your communities. Keep doing what you're doing. Thanks for those that are listening. Thanks for those that are in the chat. And we'll see you all very soon.
Well, James, you know we appreciate you and all that you do because you make what we do that much easier. So, thank you, sir.
Most definitely.
No sellout. Got anything you want to say before we head on out?
No. I appreciate everybody for coming out this rising. And see y'all tomorrow.
All right, boss. Take us on out.
So I guess on that note, it's always fun with the relatives. Enjoyed this Rising's build. Until the next Rising, peace.
Peace, y'all.